this is recording. Let me get this. Alright, so this is a kind of a shallow depth of field, so kind of, it's okay if you kind of move forward or backwards,
Right.
but try to not,
Side to side.
side to side's okay, but forward to backwards like a lot. If you go like this, it's gonna be you'll see me going like this all the time. So
Okay. I think I can sit still.
Be comfortable. That's the most important.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to situate myself where I am comfortable.
How's that chair? Is that comfortable for you?
Yeah, it's comfortable enough.
Okay.
I've sat in worse.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure the metal chairs on a ship are can't be any more comfortable, right?
They actually pad those pretty well.
Oh, so they're not that bad.
No, they're not that bad.
Okay. Let's get started here then. Mic's on, camera's on. This is good. Alright. So we'll start with tell me your name, what branch you in, and when did you go into the military?
All right. My name is Heather Williams. I am originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. I went in the U.S. Navy in 1998.
What led to your decision to join the Navy?
When I was a teenager, or actually right before my teen years, we moved to a small town called Bogalusa. In that town, most girls met their husbands in high school. The majority were married within 2 years of graduation. I didn't want that. I wanted more in my life. So I wanted a branch that would let me travel, let me see the world. And of all of them, the Navy looked to be the best bet. My grandmother was, my family on her side is sailors for 400 or 500 years.
So you've got kind of that nautical history, I guess.
I have been told I have salt water in my blood.
When you enlisted, what were your, sometimes you have this vision of what it is compared to reality. What did you think the Navy would be like?
Well, I knew I'd be at sea a lot. I knew I'd be on a ship a lot. I think my only concern was seasickness. I found out later that being a river rat on the waters and those little tiny boats most of my life kept that from happening. About the only time I got seasick was a storm, and we hit 18-foot swells. So most of us were pretty much walking on the walls. And I got drowsy. Drowsiness is the first sign of seasickness. Then you get queasy, and then you get sick. One of my favorite things to do was prank newbies who didn't have much water experience by seeing how many of them at breakfast I could make turn green and run for the trash can. I was not a nice person at times.
Were you successful in your pranks, though?
Well, one of my favorite breakfasts is eggs over medium with the yolks dripping all over the place, sausage or bacon, hash browns, and either grits or oatmeal. And I would mix them together, especially the eggs and the grits. I'd mix it all together so it would be this yellowy, goopy, drippy, greasy mess. And they take one look and just go running.
All right. So what did you go into the Navy as? What was your rating?
My rating was fire controlman. I wanted to. How much do I have to edit my language here?
Not at all.
All right. When I was at MEPS, they wanted me, because of my ASVAB, my AFQT scores, to go into the nuclear program. Well, my math skills aren't good enough for that, and they never have been. So they said, well, what about the advanced electronics computer system or field? And I said, well, what's that? They explained to me that I would go to this basic electronics school, and then at that point I would choose my rating. I could be an ET, which is the guy at MEPS said, fix the shit that everybody else breaks. Or I could be an FC, work on weapons, fix our own shit, and blow shit up. I took option B.
It's a solid choice. I think I would have done the same given the opportunity.
Well, I still had to compete to make sure I kept that rating, and I had to get a good score. And when we were picking ratings in Tech Corps in the first school, the guy that was right behind me grade-wise, he just knew he was going to be an FC. He just knew it. No girls hardly ever picked FC. He was in for a bit of a surprise when I took the last spot.
All right.
Watched him throw a nice little temper tantrum over it. I thought it was funny.
All right. Go ahead and grab a drink, and then I'll ask you a question. So what was training like, or what do you have to do? What are your duties as in fire control?
Well, fire control, depending on what type you are, there's missiles, there's guns. I started out as a missile tech. I worked on the Tomahawks. My job really was basically the computers and the systems that launched the Tomahawk missiles. We were at peacetime, so I probably would have spent 4 or 5 years doing pretty much absolutely nothing if I'd stayed in Tomahawks. There were a few incidents, and I ended up switching to guns. That's when I really had fun and got to play.
Are we talking like the 5-inch guns or the more handheld stuff?
All of it. The closed-in weapon system, CWIS, is often referred to by non-Navy and Navy types as R2-D2. Because if you look at a picture of a ship and you see the CWIS, it looks like R2-D2 from Star Wars. That was the only gun I did not work with. Everything from the 9mm to the 5-inch. When it came to the ship's guns, I operated, maintained inventory control at times, overseeing qualifications, teaching people how to shoot. That was fun.
What was your favorite weapon?
For sidearm or small arms, or for...
That's a good question. Both. What was overall your favorite system to work on? Or favorite platform to work with?
I'd say the 5-inch. I was good at it. When it came to the ship's guns, or the smaller guns, toss up between the M60 and the 50 cal.
All right.
Although I was pretty good with a shotgun too.
You told me a story when we met about being on the stern of the ship.
Oh, when I got my nickname. My nickname on the Mason, I had three of them. Princess, which I loathed with a passion. The Demon Princess, when they realized how much I hated the first one. And Sarah Connor. Now, Sarah Connor was given to me by the Air Detachment. When they saw me, a few of them had seen me take an M60, pick it up off the tripod, and start shooting it, like I would any other rifle or machine gun. When they saw me coming out in camouflage trousers, a brown t-shirt, combat boots, with the gun slung over one shoulder, 2 cans of ammunition in the other, and setting up for my watch, sunglasses, a ball cap, and my hair is in a ponytail. Because it had fallen out of the bun and I hadn't had time to fix it. They took one look and said, "Hey, Sarah."
So they knew not to mess with you after seeing that.
I got a reputation on this ship. Ice Princess is one of the other nicknames. They, a small ship, I didn't want drama. I didn't date anybody I worked with. Especially on the ship. On shore duty, I was a little bit more lax. I did date a guy. I did eventually soften on the no dating thing, and I dated an engineer. I was weapons, he was engineering. Our paths professionally never crossed.
Okay. So what, I guess, let's step back a second. After basic and after your training,
Yeah.
where did you go?
I first went to a ship called the USS Barry. I was on there for about a year. I should have been there longer, but I'd broken my ankle and was taken off. I had to heal. Yeah, not coming down in dress shoes on a ladder that when it's raining that the non-skid has not been replaced on and you have big feet is a disaster waiting to happen.
Makes sense.
So I slipped. My ankle got caught, and to be blunt, it saved my career. The rating for fire controlman had only opened up to women in 1993. I went in 98. The women who were fire controlmen before I went in were mostly radar types. They worked on the spy radar. They were Aegis types. There were very few, if any, weapons types in that first couple of years. It's the reason there was such a shock when I became an FC out of A school, because the general consensus is, well, girls always go ET. Girls don't go FC. I was point blank told that I didn't have the balls to push the button, if need be. My reaction to that was, watch me.
Did you get a lot of, was there a lot of discrimination or a lot of prejudging because you're a woman?
Yes, especially on the Barry. I had a chief, very old school Navy. His attitude was, I was there to clean up after the guys and to look pretty. Well, I'm sorry. I don't have the looks to be window dressing. I never have, I never will. I don't mind that. That's just who I am. And I wasn't there to be pretty. I'll never forget the day he came out to me on the fantail and told me I should quit smoking because it wasn't ladylike. Now, please pardon my language. I told him that if I wanted to be a lady, I was in the wrong fucking line of work.
That kind of set the tone, I guess, for...
Yeah.
Okay.
He told me once, I wasn't seasick, but I had, I guess, almost early stage flu. So a little pale, little, tired, dark circles, hadn't been sleeping well. He suggested I go down to birthing and put on some makeup so I would look better. I told him I wasn't here to impress anyone and I didn't bring enough makeup for that. That was a lie, but I wasn't going to go put crap all over my face just to make him happy. That wasn't part of my job. They wanted me to have makeup, they would have issued it in my sea bag. I had to buy it myself.
So there was open, I mean, that's a pretty blatant version of, sexual harassment or just discrimination, I guess.
Yeah. There was one incident, one of the things that the Tomahawk FCs had to monitor were what they call link tracks. Some of the tracks coming in, we had to kind of keep the database going for all the tracks. And the captain was calling down. I was on they didn't trust me by myself yet. I was fairly new. I mean, admittedly, I didn't really know much about the sea, but I did know the system. I'd done very well in Tomahawk School. I was the top student in the class, behind one chief who was getting a new MOS because his old one had, or a new NEC because his old one had expired or gone away. And there used to be a rating called God, I'm trying to remember what it was, but it was a database type thing. It was and they merged into FCs, and the Tomahawk FCs have pretty much taken over a good part of that rating's duties. Well, the captain called down, and he was screaming because he could not see his link tracks. And it was our job to make sure that everybody could see the link tracks. I was on watch with my first class with the LPO of the division, and he's flipping through the different screens. There's like 11 different screens. Now, none of this is classified, so don't worry about it. So I'm not going into too many details. And there's different filters you use, just like a firewall or anything on a computer. I mean, that's basically all it is. It's a computer. So he's flipping through the screens, and I spotted something, and, you know, when I'm watching the screens as they go by, and I spotted something. I was like, FC1, wait, go back. I got told to shut the hell up. I was a booter who didn't know what the hell I was talking about. And I said, well, fine. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but go back. I'm positive I saw something that might explain it. He still tried to tell me I didn't know anything, and finally he said, fuck it, and went back a page. And I just looked at him and I said, FC1, if we're going to look at link tracks, doesn't the link filter need to be turned on? It was funny. The problem was the captain had just walked into CIC and was standing right behind me when I said that. 3 days later, I was on the mess decks. Mess cranking is one of those jobs that everybody hates. It's like KP duty in the Army. Everybody's got to do it, and you hate it. I got sent there 2 days after, ostensibly because it was my turn in the cycle. I found out later, no, it was not. There were 4 people that were supposed to be ahead of me. I got sent there because I made the grievous error of correcting and embarrassing a male.
How long did it take to figure that out? I guess you kind of knew then.
Yeah.
It was punishment for speaking up to this guy, I guess.
Yeah, it was punishment. It was pretty blatant punishment. We pulled into Trieste, Italy, and this was the type of double standard that was common in that division. I had a boyfriend at home at the time. I wasn't going to mess around. But the guys were all joking about how they were going to go to the whorehouses in Italy, and they were going to get them some. And they just were joking and picking on me, saying, "Oh, well, you're out of luck. You're out of luck." Well, I didn't take my personal life to work. Nobody knew I had a boyfriend. It was none of their business. We pulled in next to the USS Saipan, which was an amphibious ship, which means they had a whole contingent of Marines. So I said, fine, you go to the whorehouse. You go pay for a piece of ass. I'll just walk up to the pier of the Saipan and get as much as I want for free. The next thing I knew, my liberty was restricted.
How do you internal, like, you volunteered for the Navy, and, you know, you're being beat up like this. What?
It's why I say breaking my ankle was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. Because I got taken off that ship. I got taken out of that environment. I was put on shore duty until my foot healed. After that, went back to sea and got on a ship where my brain was appreciated more than my boobs. I was appreciated because I was an intelligent sailor. It had nothing to do with my gender. Was there still a little thing? Yeah. One guy I had to deal with said, women shouldn't be in this rate. They have no business in this rate. They can't do the job. I blew out my knee, proving that I could work just as, if not harder, than the men. Because I refused to stop. I refused to take a break. I kept going. We're loading ammo, and I kept going. I felt my knee. I felt it wrench. I knew there was an issue. I didn't whine. I didn't bitch. I didn't moan. I kept working. The next morning when I woke up, my knee had blown up to the size of... Now, yes, it's about that size now, but I'm also about 30 pounds heavier than I was back then. But it had blown up. My entire leg had blown up. I went down to Doc to get a couple of ibuprofen. I was going to take about 1,600 milligrams of Motrin just to get the swelling down so I could get back to work. Doc was not going to give me that much Motrin without finding out what was wrong. And I said, my knee's just hurting a bit. He took one look at my knee and put me on light duty for 4 days. Yeah, the division was not happy with me about that one. But I always felt that I had something to prove. Barry put a chip on my shoulder that made me think I have to work harder, be better, that I had to work twice as hard to get half the credit. That's an old saying about women in a lot of places, that we have to work twice as hard to get half the credit. The guys got mad at me because I had this little cartoon on my box. What do you call a woman who wants to be the equal of a man? Lazy. And that's how I went through it. Finally, after when the Briscoe was getting ready to decom, one of the guys just patted me on the shoulder and said, "Heather, you need to calm down. You're too much. You need to get the chip off your shoulder. They're not all out to get you." I told him a little of what had happened on the Berry. He says, "And most of those assholes are retired. Calm down."
Okay. And you found it changed in the next
Oh,
years?
yeah.
Okay.
They didn't, like I said, they didn't care. They didn't, other than the stupid nicknames. As long as I was a sailor and could do my job and did it well and did it competently, nobody cared what my gender was. Or if they did, they weren't stupid enough to say it.
Okay. So we'll fast forward a little bit, and the defining moment of the World War II generation is Pearl Harbor. The defining moment of this generation is September 11th.
That's right.
Can you tell me about where you were and what happened that day?
Well, ironically enough, that was when I was still healing from the broken ankle from the Berry. We had actually, the dividing moment for sailors was more 10/12 than 9/11. 10/12/2000 was when the USS Cole got bombed. And for those of us on the Berry, we already knew instinctively, and we got it confirmed that we were one of, if not the last ship to pull in that port before the Cole bomb pulled in. And there's a good chance that had it not been hazy and rainy that day, it could have just as easily been us who got blown up. And it would have been more people, because at the time of the bombing is when the Berry had lunch. When the Cole got bombed, it was just the watchstanders in line. That's why there was honestly so few fatalities, at least in my opinion.
So you were in port with the Cole?
No, we weren't in port with the Cole. We were in the same port a couple months prior.
Okay.
We were just the last ship to go there before the Cole. So, no. But we knew how easily it could have been us. So, we were already kind of on edge for that. And then when 9/11, I was up in D.C. that morning. And I was at the Pentagon. And for all the conspiracy theorists, I can tell you this much. It was a plane. It was not a missile. It was not a drone. It was a frickin' 747. It was a jumbo jet that flew in that office.
Can you walk me through that morning then? Where were you? And
that morning, we had gone down. We were meeting with someone. The Admiral was running late. Not too many details. And we decided to go out for a coffee and a cigarette. We were coming back in from getting our coffee and having our cigarettes when the plane hit. The force of the impact knocked me on my backside. I refractured my ankle, so I had a bruised 6 and a hurt foot again. And I didn't feel any of it. One of the things I remember, and it's stupidest thing to remember or even think about, was they had been on my case to get the Navy twill, the polyester summer uniform, instead of the cottons, which I'd like to wear. I didn't like the polyester. It's sticky. It just, humidity. Nobody likes polyester in humid weather. While they issue it to sailors, I'll never comprehend. I finally broke down just to get them off my back and got one of those fancy polyester uniforms and wore it that morning. By the time we left, the uniform was ruined. And one of the funny things was also, every time we went down there, we'd always go to Olive Garden afterwards for lunch. No matter how late it was, sometimes it'd be 1, 2, 3 o'clock, we'd still go to Olive Garden for lunch. And every time, because it was summer uniforms, the white uniforms, I'd get chicken Alfredo, something with a white or cream color, a sauce that if I got some on my shirt, it would not be immediately noticeable, and I could go home, change, and it wouldn't ruin the uniform. just, I guess, on instinct, just to have some tiny sense of normality, even though it was a different Olive Garden than usual, we still went to Olive Garden. We weren't, I knew I was in pain. But there were people who needed that hospital a lot more than I did. I knew I could wait a day or two. All I needed to do was just tape up my ankle, put the heavy brace back on, I'd be fine. I could still hobble. Couldn't really walk, but I could hobble. But I just walked into that Olive Garden, looked down at my uniform, and just looked at the woman and said, "I'll have the spaghetti bolognese. Bright red tomato meat sauce," because I figured this uniform's already trashed. There's no point in me eating something I don't want, and let me just get what I like. It's the stupidest thing to think about, to remember, but we were just so numb. That night we ended up in a hotel. We couldn't go back to Norfolk. Everything was shut down. Everything was locked down. And all of us were over the age of 21, and we proceeded to get drunk. I think I drank almost half a fifth of tequila and went through about 3 packs of Marlboros that day. Then within 2 days, I was royally pissed off, and I was trying to get back to sea. And that's when I found out the damage to my foot, and I was still stuck on shore duty for almost another year.
What what was that day like? I mean, you told me the first time when we met, smoking saved your life.
Yeah, that was why I say that, is because I'd have been in that office, and that was in the wing where the plane went through, if we hadn't stepped out for a smoke. And I just remember people bitching because you couldn't smoke in the building anymore. Back, a few years prior, you could have just sat in your office, lit the cigarette, and had the meeting. No, now we had to go outside and Clean Air Act and everything else, and we were griping and complaining. If it hadn't been for the Pentagon's rules about no smoking in the building, and our own decision to go out because we knew we had to wait another 20 minutes for the frickin' Admiral to get there, we would have been, as I have jokingly called it, crispy critters. We'd either been dead or pretty badly wounded. A bruised butt, a slight fracture in my foot, and a trashed uniform is a lot better than being barbecued.
I agree entirely. So let's jump ahead real quick to the second time smoking saved your life.
That one is, when I finished my sea duty, I was supposed to go to shore duty. 3 years of shore duty, recruiting, pushing boots. This part and what happened is, a lot of it was stuff I was told later. I've had quite a few concussions through my career. This one was the worst, and I've lost about 7 months of my memories. What I remember from that day is because I used to keep journals, and I would detail, and I know, the last day journal entry. One of the guys who was with me said about the only thing that saved your ass was you were doing that stupid Coke trick of yours. And that's why you got ejected rather than getting killed. Well, the stupid Coke trick was something I picked up on the ship. We had to stand watches on the machine guns. I mentioned earlier with the M60. And you couldn't leave your watch station. And these watches could be as long as 6, 7, 8 hours long. And for a smoker, that is a long time to go without a cigarette. So my stupid Coke trick was to have a can or two of Coke in the pockets of my BDU pants. And I'd drink one. And I'd hold on to the can with about that much soda in the bottom of it. I was allowed to walk in the area. So I'd walk where no one would see me, light a cigarette, stick it down in that Coke can, and then hold it to where just the tip was up. And I'd sit there look like I was drinking the soda, and I was smoking a cigarette. That was how I got away with smoking on watches and smoking in places where I should not be smoking. as long as I was outside. I couldn't do it inside, obviously you'd still smell it. Even the Coke can can't hide that. But if I was outside where the air would have dissipated any smell, I could pull that little stunt. Well, I'm not stupid enough to light a cigarette or to even try that trick around a lot of ammo. I'd always make sure I was a few feet back from it. Again, still in the little area of my gun. Apparently, I did the same thing that morning. One of the injuries was a fracture in my skull that stretched from about here to there. And I was in a coma. And when I woke up, I realized I thought it was still November, December. I didn't realize it was July and 4 days after my 26th birthday. I was a little surprised when I went outside. And it was hot. I was also a little surprised to be waking up in Washington, D.C. and not in Iraq.
And this was an IED blast to a convoy, or?
Yes. We were coming back. We were part of a group coming back from different points, different watches, different places. And when I stood watches, I tried not to let myself be distracted. Even my Coke can trick, I'd always measure it to where it was at the exact halfway point between a watch. Okay, I've made it 3 hours. Have a cigarette. I can make it the other 3. Okay, I've made it 3.5 hours. I didn't abuse the fact that I knew I could get away with it, but I tried not to abuse the privilege. I think I'm pretty sure more people knew about me and my Coke can trick than I know of. But I think the reason nobody said anything is I didn't abuse the privilege. I didn't abuse it.
So when you were back in the hospital recovering from Iraq, you had a house in Louisiana.
I was out of the hospital when I lost my home. I was still more angry about losing my car. The house I kind of expected when I heard about Katrina. When I knew Katrina would hit. The only thing I could do was hope that my family had rescued some of my personal effects from it. They did not. Pretty much everything I had before earned in the military or had other than some uniforms and stuff. I lived in the barracks in a small apartment in Virginia. It was easier just to send everything back home. All the awards, all the documentation, everything. It was just easier. And pretty much everything that I had before August 15th of 2005 was in that house and was destroyed. Pictures, souvenirs, all of it gone. Along with my car. The car was a '69 Mustang. We've been rebuilding it. We were almost finished. So I was a little more upset about that car than I was the house. The house I expected. The car was supposed to have been taken out of town. Yeah, we'll get your car. Yeah, we'll get your car. Yeah, they didn't get my car.
That's how it always happens, I guess.
Well, it was looking back, it was funny. They said I made a Master Chief and a gunnery sergeant blush when I discovered what happened to my car.
So how much longer were you in the military after 2005?
2 years. I was fighting. Well, first they had to try to patch me back up and put me back together, and then I was fighting to stay in. I lost the battle.
Something that strikes me about your entire career, and those from '98 to 2007, that 9-year period. You were nothing went
right.
Easy. Exactly. I mean, when you came out of the military, when you returned home, how did you deal with that? Was it tough?
It was. It's one of the reasons that I don't live in Louisiana anymore. There's actually a country song. It's called "I Just Came Back from a War" by Daryl Worley. And to me, that song, pretty much, I could have written it. Because the chorus in that line, one of the chorus lines in that song is, if I'm not the same that I was before, well, I just came back from a war. It's kind of like, what do you expect? I've seen too much. I've done too much. I've been to too many places that this provincial crap is not going to cut it.
How did you cope with re-entering the civilian war?
It took a while. There was a lot I couldn't do. I had trouble holding a job. I had trouble with everything. I wasn't even sure about going back to school. I didn't try to even. It took me 2 years to go back to school. I also was dealing with being a mom. I had a family. I split from my children's father. He couldn't. And it's funny is he was a veteran too. But he was strictly a peacetime veteran. We met up in Illinois during Tech Corps and A School and everything. He was an ET. Well, he had been injured he was prior service Marine. He'd been injured in the Marine Corps, but the injury didn't seem to bother him, so when he went in the Navy, and it just started getting worse as he got a little older. So they ended up medically discharging him from the Navy. So he was nothing but a peacetime. He had never, yes, he'd been deployed, he'd gone places. But as always, during peace, he never had that paranoia, I guess you could say, that combat veterans and wartime veterans have. It's just this thing where you're constantly on alert. You have to be. And I've said it before that the Navy, especially with my job, it issued me insomnia with my boots. Just because, and you can't even relax because it's constantly, is that a small boat? Are we going to be attacked? Is that crowd on the pier? Do they have a bomb? Everything was constantly on that war footing. About the only time you could sort of relax was back in port, in Port Norfolk.
Did you ever think, I can't do this anymore? I can't, this is too tough?
At one point, yes. I was under the impression I'd never walk again. I found out a few days before. I wanted to leave as little mess and as little as few complications as I could for my family. I had everything arranged, and I was the date. It would have been a Saturday. That Thursday, they said, "Oh, we made a mistake. Your spinal cord was slightly damaged, but it's going to be fine. It's not severed. You've got a chance of walking again." So the pistol I intended to put in my mouth that Saturday went to the pawn shop, and I went to the tattoo parlor. I have a nice big phoenix on my right shoulder blade. That was paid for with the money from the pistol I intended to put through my head.
What drives those thoughts?
For me, it was the fact that I was so young, and I didn't want to be a burden. For me, I felt like I was going to be a burden, especially with the fact that I thought I'd never walk again. That someone was going to have to wipe my ass for the rest of my life, and I'm only 26 years old. That means 50 years of someone else having to do that for me. I couldn't do it. That was my reasonings, and the reasons are as different as the veterans who have them. 22 veterans commit suicide every day.
What would you say to those, the people in your shoes who, or at the same spot you were that Thursday, or making plans for that Saturday? What would you say to them?
It's not easy. Nothing in life ever is. try to find something. Try to find something, some reason. Try giving back. I've worked with different veterans groups, just trying to give back, just feeling some sense. I still have days where I feel like, why do I even bother? Why am I even here anymore? For me, honestly, if it probably weren't for my kids and wanting not to disappoint them, I probably would have had more. I would have had more thoughts. There's a chance I probably would have already killed myself. But I didn't want to disappoint my children. To hell with my parents. To hell with my siblings. To hell with my ex. To hell with any of them. It's my kids. I don't want to be disappointment to my kids. I don't want my kids to grow up thinking Mom didn't love us. She killed herself to get away from us.
I mean, that's probably the best reason I think you can think of.
Yeah.
Kids.
Yeah. I don't speak to my parents. I don't, really have anything to do with any of my family anymore. But my children, I want to be someone my kids can be proud of.
I think you've done a pretty good job. I don't want to hold you any longer. I have 2 questions for you.
All right.
2 to 10. One of the things that people often relate to veterans is the word hero or heroism.
I'm not a hero. I did my job. I joined the Navy for completely selfish reasons. I stayed in because I loved it. Even after everything those first couple of years, I loved it. I loved the travel. I loved the work. I loved the feeling of being part of something bigger than myself. But I'm not a hero. I did my job. I did it well. And I came out a different person, yes. I came out as an adult. I was a stupid hick kid with a chip on my shoulder when I joined. I came out as a woman who has seen the world and knows what it has to offer.
Who is a hero then, or what is a hero? What's the definition of heroism, and who is a hero?
I do admire a lot of my fellow veterans. I do hold them up as heroes. But these are ones. I may have trouble walking. I still have all 4 limbs. I may have trouble with my teeth. I still have some of them. I may not like the way my face looks at times. I still have it. I'm not burned. I'm not scarred. I'm not missing limbs. The ones who do that and still fight and still go on and still keep going, those are my heroes. The ones who make what I look like a tap on the shoulder. I had an easy time of it compared to some.
What does it mean then to you to be a veteran? How do you feel about that?
I volunteered. I wanted to serve. Being a veteran for me is just, I had a call. To me, it was a calling. Being in the military was a calling. It was something I'd wanted to do from my early childhood. I didn't want to just be another statistic. I wanted to make a difference. To me, a veteran is someone who felt that calling and wanted to make that difference. For whatever selfish reasons they initially thought of, it always ends up being a calling. You get 6 months. You get about 6 months after you first join in and go to boot camp that you can pretty much get yourself out. No problems, So one who stays and keeps fighting, that's a veteran. And keeps going and honors their commitments and lives by the code.
So I think I know the answer already to this last question, but let's step back to 98. Would you take the oath again?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's an old saying that is on t-shirts, and I'm actually getting one, that I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution. No one has ever relieved me of my duties under that oath. No one ever has, and no one ever will.
Okay. Anything we didn't touch on, or anything you wanted to add, or any thoughts or anything you wanted to share for other veterans or anything?
Just do what you feel like you need to do in life. Nobody's going to tell anybody how to dictate. Nobody can dictate how you live your life. You got to make your own choices. And this can go for male or females, but I think Ronda Rousey puts it best. Yes, I like Ronda Rousey. Don't be a do-nothing bitch. Don't be a do-nothing bitch. Don't be one who's going to just lay around and cry, woe is me. Because that's going to get you nowhere. Get up and try to make a difference.
Makes sense.
Even if physically you can't do it anymore, I know I can't. I was joking last night about with some friends about there are lots of things I used to could do. I can't. I used to could do this. I used to could do that. I may not be able to do that anymore. There's still a lot more I can do, and that's what I look forward to.
It's a positive future you have. You have what, 2 more years, and then.
Oh no, I graduate in May.
Well, that's right.
I'm hoping for grad school, and that will be 2 more years. That all depends on how I did in Dr. Gimber's class. One side effect of the head injury is I don't take tests very well anymore. My short-term memory is pretty fried. So, and he's a tester. He likes tests. Everybody else in history department likes papers. Papers I can sit at home in front of my computer and research and reread and reread. Dr. Gimber likes tests.
You got lucky then, I guess.
No, that's pretty standard for history professors. Most of it's writing. It's only in like the basic freshman history do you have to take tests. And that's the same stuff you've been learning since you were 10, so when you took your first social studies classes. So that's kind of beaten into your long term.
Okay. Like I said, I don't want to hold you any longer. That's all I have. That's all the questions.